Hello.
Hello. It's Sunday.
It is Sunday,
It's late.
Yeah.
How are you doing?
Pretty good, yeah. We had a nice little afternoon and got relaxed, got out in the nice weather. I think me and Winston both took naps.
Yeah, Winnie has been asleep a lot today.
Yeah, it was tough last night with the fireworks. He was very stressed for several hours. But he did eventually fall asleep, maybe around 12:30 or so.
Poor puppy.
Which was predictable as the fireworks died off. But yeah, it was, pretty fun weekend for just the three of us hanging out and did some cool stuff, played some games. Playing some Baba Is You.
Baba Is You. It's
a
the
pretty wild
hardest
game. It's a very difficult
of
game.
all
It's
time.
very interesting.
No, I'm just kidding.
It's quite unique.
Well, yeah, some of the levels. So it's a puzzle-based game, but you can move things around, and there's characters, and there's things you can push, and there's things that you can open, and then there's things that float, and then things that teleport you. Each level, I'm oh, there's a new mechanic here.
Yeah.
So it's kind of fun.
And you get the basic premise is that you move around words on the screen, and the words are creating sentences that are controlling the other objects on the screen. So it's kind of interesting.
Yeah. So
hence, Baba Is You, but you could replace Baba, or you could replace
I can
You.
make a box is you.
Yeah,
or
it's pretty
key
wild.
is you.
It's a super fun and unique game.
Yeah.
Very enjoyable. Anything else going on?
I made a video.
Yeah, you did. I watched it.
So I'm back to
Connie.
Well, no, I was sighing because this week I'm back to working on an extra project and extra monies for work stuff, professional academic work stuff. But rumor has it we're gonna get some Harry Potter Wizards Unite stuff.
Yeah, I don't know how this rumor mill started, but I think it was oven ready.
No. This is from the NDA people.
Oh, okay. Well,
so,
who knows?
I'm busy this week. Don't
Maybe.
news
You
this
don't know.
week.
You don't know anything. Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah. Yeah. I know there's always this funny skepticism around not being in the NDA, and it's oh, but you do know, right? And it's no, you don't know anything.
Yeah. I realize my wand is not ready.
One's not ready. And cut.
Okay, we're ready.
Okay, should we get into it then?
Yeah.
All right.
Wand's ready.
Wand's ready. Turn to page 31, The Night Bus. Today's lesson is called Rules Are Rules.
Oh my gosh.
Which is something that Fudge literally says. So, a synopsis. The chapter begins with Harry alone on the street, his wizarding equipment in tow. Harry is taking stock of his predicament when he senses what turns out to be a large black beast watching him. As he nervously prepares to deal with it, he accidentally summons the night bus, a form of transport for stranded wizards and witches. He hides his identity from the night bus employees Stan and Ernie, but not his ignorance about the wizarding world. Harry learns about Sirius Black, a deranged man who escaped from Azkaban and who killed 13 people with a single curse. Harry spends the rest of his trip to Diagon Alley dreading the legal realities he's facing for using underaged magic. When he arrives, he is stunned to find none other than the Minister for Magic, Cornelius Fudge, waiting for him. Fudge is apparently relieved to see Harry safe and sound, given Black's escape, and nonchalantly disregards Harry's use of magic to blow up his aunt. Harry is then put up in a room at the Leaky Cauldron and promptly falls asleep.
We'll get to Fudge. Don't even get me started on Fudge.
Okay.
So, the night bus is emergency transport for stranded witches and wizards. Of course, there's some writing on Wizarding World about it. So it's a triple-decker bus, has seats during the day and beds at night. So this is nighttime. Harry has a bed, not a seat. It's a relatively modern invention in wizarding society.
Sure.
And, yeah, so there was a need for some form of transportation to help out who we're talking about here, stranded witches and wizards, to discreetly transport them within the Muggle world.
Right.
And there were many suggestions, supposedly. Sidecars on taxi-style broomsticks, carrying baskets slung under thestrals. All of them were vetoed by the ministry.
Mm-hmm.
And then Minister for Magic, Dugald McPhail.
Nice.
Phail.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't realize that until I read it out loud.
McPhail.
Yeah,
McLovin.
yeah. Hit upon the idea of imitating the Muggles' relatively new bus service. In 1865, the night bus hit the streets. So
1865.
yeah.
1865.
That's what it said.
Wow, okay.
1865 is when
Interesting.
this thing started and was inspired by Muggles.
Hmm.
Not surprising, but some pureblood fanatics refused to ride the night bus,
Oh, sure. You think Lucius Malfoy is going to go up on this bus? Give me a break.
boycotting what was dubbed this Muggle-esque outrage in the letters page of the Daily Prophet. But regardless, the night bus proved hugely popular with
Yeah.
most of the community.
Sure. I mean, what's not to like about it? It's really quite a fascinating solution. And
Yeah.
it makes sense now that you've read the history that it would come from a concern that stranded witches and wizards might be desperate enough to use magic in
Yeah.
the presence of muggles.
Yeah.
I like how it works too. Like, he summons it, it picks him up, and then when it starts, it goes back to where it was. What is it? Like, that's kind of crazy. It's like this rubber band.
Yeah.
So the
yeah.
magic is the summoning, and then there's a secondary magic of like not being seen and things like that.
Yeah, and making things move out of the way. Just like the whole thing about it is kind of
Yeah,
crazy.
yeah. Like when Harry says Voldemort, and they
And then
go
he's
through like a
go the
barn
far-
or whatever.
Yeah, he's like, "Wah."
It's hilarious.
J.K. Rowling wrote that the night bus was named because night, Knight, is a homonym for night, the evening.
And it's a chivalrous act.
And yes, night has the connotation of coming to the rescue.
Mm-hmm.
So that was part of
Sure,
the
I can see
naming of it. The driver and conductor of the night bus are named after her two grandfathers, Ernest and Stanley.
Nice.
Those are my fun facts about the night bus.
I like it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I thought about looking up the night bus.
Here's another instance where Harry just like, people just be watching Harry. They're just like hiding in bushes or in the nighttime. He like just sees glimmers of, so last time it was eyes. It was Dobby just like watching him in the last book. Now we have this like thing that's like there, and he's like, that's why he falls over and accidentally summons the night bus. Oh.
Mm-hmm. So who else comes to Harry's rescue? Cornelius Fudge.
Oh my gosh.
In the most ridiculous way imaginable, which is, basically.
Well, before we get to Fudge, I have a couple of things about Sirius Black.
Okay.
Well, actually, it's not really that serious. But,
hit us with them.
No, just that so Harry makes the connection that Black is the Black that's also on the Daily Prophet, and he's like, oh, hey, I've seen that guy. And the people are like, yeah, dude, come on. I thought it was
Come on, Neville.
Yeah, come on, Neville. Oh my gosh, poor Neville. Just impersonating Neville. I thought it was interesting the way that they talked about like, oh well, Sirius was, or supposedly is carrying a gun. Like that's kind of the story.
A type of Muggle magic wand.
Yeah, I thought that a kind of metal wand that Muggles use to kill each other. Like I thought that was an interesting glimpse into. So we describe like all these magical things, but like from the framings of us as people who don't have magic, and so it's kind of interesting to see it the other way around of like how would I explain something that doesn't really exist in our magical world, like using magical parallels that aren't, it doesn't quite capture like what it is because it can't, but it's just interesting to see that. The whole, and again in this, like we're talking a lot about madness and confinement because they're kind of like, oh, he like was just laughing after he murdered a bunch of people, and then kind of joking like, oh well, if Azkaban probably did it worse for him or something. They were just like talking about him as if he's not a person. So all this like punishment stuff that like Harry is now carrying around with him by the time he meets Fudge is kind of like, there's all this like in the air where he's thinking about like, well, first of all, there's never been a breakout from Azkaban, but like he keeps hearing about this prison, this wizard prison, and then he questions. He's like, was inflating Aunt Marge bad enough to land in Azkaban? So that's like the frame of mind he has been for the last however many days, been surrounded by all of this discourse about.
Yeah, I like how he thinks to himself like, Ron and Hermione would still help him even though he's a criminal now.
They would.
Yeah, they would.
Okay,
they do.
Then he meets Fudge, which was a surprise.
Yeah, I mean, for me, the standout of the chapter is the juxtaposition between his dismissal of basically fudging the laws, right? I mean, he can do whatever he wants. It's this idea of like the flexibility of the justice system, right? So, it's no big deal. And then Harry himself, I think Harry's voice in this is almost harshly unrealistic, right? Because he is so pure of heart that he's just like, but last year I got a notice even though I wasn't even the one who cast it.
Because it's a clear inconsistency. So it's not just the fact that he's Harry Potter as a potential of like, oh, well, it's Harry Potter, let's protect him. That can't be true because last year he was punished.
Right.
And he was still Harry Potter last year. And so trying to figure out what makes it different this time that compared to last time, which was one, not his fault at all, and he got blamed for and like threatened with punishment. So it's definitely something very suspicious. And I was just like, first I forgot that Harry had already seen him because he like Fudge introduces himself and he's like, oh, Cornelius Fudge. And Harry in his head is like, yeah, no, I saw you under my dad's invisibility cloak, but you're not supposed to know that. Fudge has a lot of gems that set me off in this chapter. Like,
but the juxtaposition is that he says it's fine, but then he can't sign the Hogsmeade's letter because the rules are rules. And so you have immediately in our first major interaction, well, even our first true interaction with Fudge, he is contradictory about rules and laws. And in this one, he is, again, contradictory or hypocritical about the rules are rules. Because he says that, but he doesn't actually act that way, right? Because he himself believes he's above the rules, as do a lot of people.
We saw that last book, though, when Harry was under the invisibility cloak, and he was saying, like, oh, well, you know, Hagrid, whatever, like, you'll just be sent to Azkaban for a few days, and if you're innocent, then, like, well, like, it was...
It's too casual.
It's a game.
Yeah, it's very, very casual. Right?
It doesn't impact him.
And I find it incredibly disheartening. It's one of the things that disgusts me the most in the world is double standards of this type. People who stand on the principle of a justice system but don't do it in any sort of even-handed way, which is who Fudge represents in this couple of scenes and will continue to represent pretty harshly as we go forward, where he in the name of justice does whatever he wants.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm going to do this in the name of justice. I will be unjust in the name of justice, and that'll be fine.
Yeah.
So I'll twist the laws. I'll change the laws because I'm above the law. Doesn't really matter if you're innocent, Hagrid. Doesn't really matter if you're guilty, Harry. It's fine. Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Because it's all circumstantial.
It's very blatant because he ends up retorting back to Harry of like, do you want to be expelled? It's so, like... evil.
It's very
because
threatening.
It reminds me, so like the fact that this is like written for, it's a children's series, like there are certain moments throughout that I think are super compelling thinking about myself as a child reading this, because like how many times as a kid trying to figure out like how rules work, being in school and then being like, wait a second, this happened here but not here, like why is that the case? And then so it's kind of this, like I know a lot of people use Harry or like early Harry and this like transformation as like this innocence and then like coming to like grow into the world, and so that is very much, this is another instance of that to me, of just being being confronted with like people like Fudge are normal. It's just like part of the existing world.
Completely. They are by far, this is how people act, right? Mm-hmm. They will say out loud, rules are rules. And they will proclaim it, but they won't act it. So there's always been a part of me where it's like, well, wouldn't it be, because I value honesty very highly, like, wouldn't it just be better to be honest about, like, no, that justice is not blind. Our rules are not blindly applied. We actually do take into account circumstance. Why can't you just say that?
Yeah.
Why do you have to say something like a platitude like rules are rules?
Mm-hmm.
You know, the best judges and things seem to be judges who interpret the law relative to the circumstances. You look at, like, what are the circumstances? That's why you can have nuanced conversation about the law. Mm-hmm. But then you get the discourse about the law as, like, it's ironclad and, you know.
Yeah, the most frustrating part to me about, well, a lot of my frustration in moments like these is when, to me, it's clear that whoever the quote-unquote adult is not telling Harry what is happening. And so, like, that was me with Dumbledore all last book.
Yes.
That's me right now, is, like, there's clearly some more stuff going on, and I don't think Harry sees it yet, but it's, like, clear.
He senses it.
He senses that there's something odd.
Otherwise,
but,
he wouldn't follow
the things
up.
are connected, though.
Right. They totally are.
We will see
Well, yes. And even in, like, less kind of confluence of, like, connectedness, just in general, I get hot about this idea because I believe it has a big role to play in schooling, right? Where we teachers, or we as students, like, hear or say, like, these are the rules, and then we bend them. But we don't say the rules are flexible. We say the rules are rigid, but then we bend them in secret. It's quiet, right?
Yeah.
And it's what you're saying is, like, especially as a young person, but even into my adulthood, like, trying to figure out what the rules actually are. And I think what I figured out is that there are very, very few rules that are actually firm in any sort of circumstance. Like, they're always flexible, always negotiable. But even the people who proclaim to be the most rigid, like Umbridge will and Fudge does.
But it also, so, like, those depend on who it is and what those.
That's right.
So, like, that
so
as
the
being
negotiation
part of the,
is you have to be really cognizant of your position there.
Yeah.
Can
Fudge,
I? No. What do you?
No, I just wanted to comment on the things that Fudge said that made me mad really quickly. Just that. Okay, him being like, "Oh, the Dursleys, they're your family after all," and I'm just like, dudes, like, all these people,
deep down or
whatever. Come on, it was an accident. And then, so I wrote the thing about Dobby, and then Harry goes into the thing about Dobby. But yeah, the thing, circumstances change, whatever. Don't want to lose you again, do we? Like, just say what you mean. Just talk to Harry as a person. That's never gonna happen. And so the thing that summed it up to me was Harry in his head thinking this didn't tally at all with his past dealings. Like, obviously there's something happening here, and yeah. Fudge is just annoying.
I mean, I could go on
go ahead
forever about justice and my understandings of it or interpretations of it, but here's some more interesting thing. I looked up some laws. So here are some laws in the wizarding world. There's a ban on experimental breeding, which we've talked a bit about. So, you know, Newt wrote it. Lots of different things. So blast-ended scroots, whatever.
The fire chicken.
Chicken.
That's why I talked about it previously for Wizards Unite.
Yeah. There's a code of wand use. So in the next book, we'll see, for example, a house elf accused of using a wizard's wand. Goblins also cannot use wizard's wands. Basically, only no non-humans can.
And that has, like, a lot of complicated history of who counts as, like, the hierarchies.
Definitely centaurs. Very frustrated. The decree for justifiable confiscation. So this is quite Muggle in its use. It's basically that, like, that the police can seize things. it comes up in the 7th book. The decree for the reasonable restriction of underage sorcery, which we're dealing with right now, and Harry deals with basically his whole story here. The guidelines for the treatment of non-wizard part humans. So this is like half giants and and centaurs and merpeople. So it's quite interesting. The wand ban is talked about there. Well, whether it's entirely a law, I mean, it's specifically called guidelines, but it has to do with like rules for treating them. So, kind of interesting. International ban on dueling, which is a thing. The Statute of Secrecy, International Statute of Wizarding Secrecy, the official name.
Yes.
The Muggle Protection Act, which Arthur has some things to do with that and make sure that like wizards aren't abusing muggles. Here's something in the U.S. for MACUSA, Rappaport's Law. So Rappaport's Law has to do with banning marriage and friendship between wizards and no-mages, the American analog to muggles. So that's quite interesting. It gets repealed in 1965. The Registry of Prescribed Charmable Objects. So these are things that you're allowed to charm, like a broomstick. The Werewolf Code of Conduct.
Newt, I talked about Newt
I remember.
with this last time, or whenever it was.
The Wisengamot, I don't know how to pronounce it perfectly, Charter of Rights. So we'll see that in the 5th book as well. So accused has the right to present witnesses. Then you have the tracking of underage wizards, that all animagi must be registered with the Ministry for Magic. Apparently, these are less fleshed out ideas, but apparently there's a legislation about what you can conjure. Interesting. The use of Veritaserum is closely controlled. You have to have a license to apparate from the Department of Magical Transportation, like a license. And last but not least, you must clip the distinctive forked tail of a Krupp to hide it from muggles.
I did know that. Poor little Kruppies.
Little Winnie.
Yeah.
So I like this because for me, like, this is part of the fun of Fantasy Worlds, is that you get to explore the deeper part of the iceberg if you want to. Because obviously some of these like come up in some sense, but they're not like explicit as this. So I found this online, and there's more detail than what I said. So it's pretty fun.
Yeah, for sure. Some other things that I looked up were the Leaky Cauldron. That's where Harry is forced to stay for the next couple of weeks due to our lovely minister.
Yeah, it's going to be tough on him. He has like full freedom, so it's going to be real tough.
Oh, Harry. Okay, so the Leaky Cauldron was created 2 centuries before the imposition of the International Statute of Secrecy, and it was initially visible to Muggle eyes. It was just open.
Whoa!
Yeah.
It was just a bar. I would have been there.
Yeah. When the Statute of Secrecy was imposed,
some fire whiskey.
There was sort of like, people wanted to keep it because it was obviously like super popular. People loved it.
The Cauldron.
The Cauldron.
Leaky Cauldron.
Sorry,
okay.
Yeah, the Leaky Cauldron.
No, I got you. I was just...
And so they decided, okay, we're going to conceal it. We're going to protect it. And we're going to, if you're going to use it, you have to be good. Like that was kind of this understanding. And the Minister for Magic at the time, Ulick Gamp, was sympathetic to the needs and to let off steam under the the difficult new conditions, that being the Statute of Secrecy.
Sure.
So keeping
hard to be hidden.
Yeah. Keeping it open for them and letting the landlord responsibility for granting entrance into Diagon Alley. So that was kind of like when that happened. So letting people go in, and because they also needed to protect Diagon Alley if we're doing the Statute of Secrecy. So they had it all like in this one little...
Could you imagine like pre-Statute of Secrecy, you're just like chilling out in London, shopping, boom, Diagon Alley.
Yeah.
What is this?
Super fun.
Hit by the night bus.
Also, to honor Gamp's protection of the Leaky Cauldron, The landlord created a new brand of beer, Gamp's Old Gregarious, which tasted so disgusting that nobody has ever been known to finish a pint. There's a 100 galleon prize to anyone prepared to do so.
Hagrid could do it.
But nobody has yet succeeded in claiming the gold.
That's funny.
Yeah, I thought that was a cute little fact.
Yeah, it's a good chapter because yet again we've got a different transition between Muggle and Wizarding worlds. Mm-hmm. Right? Like, the first one is basically just Hagrid. The second one is the flying car, and now the third is the night bus.
Yeah.
And I think that pattern, I hadn't pre-thought this, but I suspect it will follow that there are different entry points.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, the fourth would be like the Quidditch World Cup, and the fifth would be, goes on. So I really like these types of chapters because you can kind of see how J.K. Rowling is setting the tone for what's going on. It's that's why I named the chapter the way it did. Not only did it stand out to me that, like, to have Fudge say rules are rules, but that this story will be about justice, right? Mm-hmm. It is about a person who was in jail and is now broken out of jail, and all the prejudices that would come with such a position in the world, and an admittance when it comes down to it that wizarding justice is also fallible. Like, this is not the person who you think they are.
What I didn't look up that I will have to look up in a future chapter is Azkaban, because just there's a lot. I mean, like I said, last chapter there was a lot. That's why I went into the theoretical thing of, like, how we're seeing people and, like, the idea of criminality and like punishment particularly. And Harry even outwardly questions this of, like, what is his due punishment for something like this? For this instance, it appears to be nothing, but
it's so pure. He's so noble. I get that he's kind of probing, but you don't see that. It's another character description of Harry, right? It kind of sets him apart. He's not really trying to get away with it. I mean, he has the thoughts on the night bus, but then when he's truly confronted with the person and he does get away with it, he's like, wait a second. Nothing?
Yeah.
Nothing.
Yeah, I think also, so in context of what is going on, just broadly, this is the first time, supposedly, anyone has ever broken out of Azkaban.
Right.
So I imagine that the response by Fudge is also, like, it's clunky because it's Fudge, but it's also like, what do you do in this novel situation?
Totally.
And so, like, Harry is like, you're nothing in this situation. We have bigger things to do. He's not talking about it. And then Harry brings it up, and then Fudge kind of is like, whoa. Like,
yes, so the hypocrisy isn't being flexible. It's being flexible in the face of saying something like rules are rules, which is an absolute truism, right? Yeah. You're defining them as themselves, and therefore they're rigid and unflexible. Inflexible.
I don't know. Yeah, inflexible.
They cannot flex.
No flexing.
But, like, Harry Fudge has a chance to tell the truth, and it would forego a lot of pain that's about to come up. That series of lies of, like, we'll shelter him, right? We'll just shelter him. Yeah. We the adults will handle it, and
poorly.
We see that is the epitome to me of the teacher-student dilemma, which is or parent-child, like an attempt to shelter from pain at the cost of denying reality.
And just dealing with it.
So
that's an experience to learn from.
You can pretend all you want, right? That rules are rules, but Harry knows that you're lying.
Yeah. It's true.
He knows. So and his curiosity, and it comes in, I believe, the next chapter or one after, from such a more amiable source, being Arthur Weasley. The same type of, like, half truths, like, be careful, don't look for him, right? That kind of
Yeah.
thing. But without just put your cards on the table. This isn't a poker game.
Yeah.
It's not a game.
Yeah.
That's my problem. That's where I fall on this stuff.
Yep.
That's why Fudge annoys the crap out
No,
of me
I
in
agree.
this book.
And this is also why Dumbledore sets me off sometimes. So
Yes, exactly right. Yes, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Okay.
That's all I have.
Yeah, well,
Hey.
good chapter. Until next time,
Wand's
Wand's
ready.
ready.